Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this conversation. My name is Santosh Unni, and it's my pleasure to host this new engagement platform, Out to the Blueprint, for Veneta Cucine India, the modular kitchen brand from Italy. The brand was first to introduce modular kitchens into India 25 years ago and has installed over 30,000 kitchens in the country so far. Out to the Blueprint emanates from an idea to engage with individuals from the broader architecture and the design fraternity who have and who are continuing to explore innovative and disruptive transformations in the space. Our conversation today is on micro or tiny homes, a very unique concept of homes based on minimalism, modularity, and renewability. As a matter of fact, the concept of living in tiny homes goes back several centuries, but the experience of living in one was first written about in 1845 by Henry David Thoreau in his book On Walden Pond, based on his 2-year stint of living in a 150 square feet cabin along a pond in Massachusetts. So our guest today is Anshul Chodha, who in many ways has been the pioneer as far as micro homes are concerned in India, and has been asking very searching questions around minimalism and the environment with his new startup, Zen Den. Anshul, welcome to this discussion, and it's a pleasure to have you kick off the very first episode of Veneta Cucine's Out to the Blueprint. Before I come to the topic, I thought it may be helpful for us to have a conversation about you. If you can tell the viewers how you got into the world of architecture, your tryst with innovation and design, and your journey so far.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here and an honor. I've been working with Veneta Cucine now for 20 years, and so it's really an honor to be here, and to be the first speaker in your series feels even more special. So coming to your question, Santosh, architecture came to me by chance. It literally fell in my lap. It's a very interesting story because my parents were very keen, like most other parents, that I do medicine. I didn't quite have the marks for it, but they still felt that I could, I should be a doctor. However, I went to Manipal. They took me to Manipal, in fact, to see if I could get a seat. And it just so happened that the aptitude test for architecture was happening the very next day. And I decided to actually do the architecture aptitude test on the slide. I packed my dad off, and next thing I know, I was doing this aptitude test, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And that was the day I realized that I was fit to do something that I loved. And it was a true discovery for me, because I actually secured a rank in that aptitude test and also landed the seat by that evening. So literally, it just fell into my lap, and it was meant to be. Since then, I've never really looked back. It just opened up a whole new world for me. I've always been, kind of a keen observer. I love nature. I love the outdoor environment. So it's always been, for me, a journey of discovery and a journey of trying to become one with what I see around me. That sort of has led to various inquiries and questioning during the journey. Of course, there's a commercial side to the practice, which pays the bills. So we've done many a bar, many a restaurant in the past. We've done lots of homes. We've done some very exciting and fun projects. And through that process, I learned detailing. Through that process, I learned how to understand the user, understand the user's needs, understand design in general. And I think it's been only in the last 3, 4, 5 years that I decided that, I got a little sort of not necessarily bored, but I got a little, I thought, things were happening too much as per pattern. It was getting a little too predictable for me. So, I decided to sort of break that predictability and go out of my comfort zone, and started to sort of research about sustainability, started to understand more about what it really means to be sustainable and green. And also, what I figured is that as architects, uh, we have a certain social responsibility to society. And I didn't quite have a project where I could sort of be responsible. And hence, I actually decided to give myself one with limited resources and with limited uh, funds. But I said, let's see where this can take us. And every day since then has been a whole new discovery. I think it started with the design of our own office, which I had to do with obviously very limited funds and limited time. That gave me key insights as to how one can achieve a kind of a very different language if one challenged oneself with materiality and didn't go the conventional route. If one challenged oneself with just the entire approach to a project, and sort of never looked back since then. And now we have just a whole new world of opportunities in terms of discovery, in terms of design, in terms of materiality, in terms of approaches. So yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell, that's been my journey so far, and it's been exciting, and it's getting even more exciting.
Okay. I mean, I read when I was researching you, I came across something which said that your first actual big project was your own home, the Chodha home. I mean, that must have been quite a responsibility, because you're doing something for the family, and here are two parents who wanted to take you to medical school, and you chose the other path. So the expectations from them as well as the rest of the family must have been immense.
Yeah, actually. So, I got very lucky with the house because it came at the right time. My parents were looking to build a home, and I was also looking to see what next to do. I'd spent a good 6 years with my earlier firm, and this was a great opportunity and a great stepping stone to actually start my own practice. So yeah, I got lucky that I had a project to do before I even started Sanctuary, which became Sanctuary's first project.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a tough project because I was used to uh, very high budget homes. I was used to doing large footprints in the earlier firm, at least in terms of the size of the homes. This was a much smaller home, and it's never easy dealing with a father who's given you a very tight budget. So, so I wasn't sure how I was going to achieve it. But I think once you're put in the deep end, you just learn how to swim, and that's exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, very, very interesting. When I was, looking through some of the work that you've done, and I really liked a particular statement that you made in one of your past interviews. I think saying that your style is to exercise restraint and keeping things highly functional and minimalistic. So I think that I found that to be very interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Anshul?
Yeah, sure. So Santosh, I think that's the backbone of the underlying design principle. I believe that if something doesn't work, or if something doesn't serve its purpose or function, no matter how beautiful it may look, it really eventually is of no use. And then my responsibility as a designer is to make things easy for people, It's to bring in efficiency and happiness in their lives. And beauty cannot be skin deep. It has to, at the end of the day, fulfill, a design has to fulfill the purpose for which it is being created. And so it's important to understand that purpose first and then work backwards to see what is the backbone of the design, and then develop it to be aesthetic and beautifully finished at the same time. So that's really the underlying principle
Okay.
that I work.
And anything, Anshul, that really shaped your design thinking? Was it people? Was it art? Was it objects? Is there something specific uh, uh, through your journey that really you came across and really inspired you to think in a particular fashion that has shaped you today?
I think, Santosh, more than anything else, I think it's just keen observation and nature, right? Um, I just look at things around me, and I see that most things around me are there's more than what you just look at on the surface. If you just look at a tree, and no matter how beautiful that tree looks, there's a certain crazy chemistry that's happening within it that makes it become that, right? So for me, it's all about how, what's behind the scenes, what really went into making something looks like the way it looks. And it's not about making something look a certain way and then figuring out how what the skeletal structure is going to be. It's really about understanding what the purpose of the whole object or the design is, and building on it from the roots. And that's the seed that I like plowing. So I have no idea of what the exterior is going to look like before I decide the core principles of the design on which the design will work.
Okay. Wonderful. I mean, it's great to hear a thinking mind. I think a lot of what you said resonates so well with some of the work that you've done. Now, coming to micro homes, I think I've done a fair bit of work trying to understand what micro homes and tiny homes are all about. And I was very surprised to find that there's a hell of a lot of literature, a lot of writing that has been done on this concept. As a matter of fact, there seems to have been a whole movement, especially in the US, around tiny homes. Is that something that you have researched and done some study on? And maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about the history of tiny homes and its evolution as far as the Western world has seen.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone too deep into the history, but I do know that, the the basic need for shelter, as far as man is concerned, has always been of great priority, because the need to protect oneself from outside forces. And if you look at primitive man, he used to live in a cave out of no other option, because he was yet to develop technology. Then you start looking at the early shelters in Africa, or if you start looking at the yurts that the Mongolians made to protect themselves, and go as far as North Pole and look at the igloos. It was all made out of natural materials around them. It wasn't made out of too many high-tech materials. It was actually very, very simple natural materials. And coming now, fast forward to the 20th century, or rather the 21st century, I think the movement is more out of concern. I mean, it's multifold, of course. One is, if you just look at the costs that we pay for, if you have to afford a home today, right? It's phenomenal. And if you look at the environmental impact that we have of building, we actually are responsible for 40 to 50% of the world's climate change, pollution that we cause out of our building industry. And I'm not sure we're doing too much about that. We're still not so concerned. Commerce dictates everything, but there is a considerable harm that we're doing to our environment. So most of the people who take to this concept, and it's a very small percentage of the world, but it's a fairly large percentage in terms of enough for an industry to thrive on, right? So it's only the 1% of the world that, or rather 1% of maybe people in the US that sort of subscribe to this. And it's been only in the last, say, since the time, there was the last recession around 2007, because the average home in the US is almost 1,600, 1,700 square feet. And everyone in the US basically takes a loan to build, to actually acquire a home. And it's almost like in India. So for your entire lifetime, you are sort of a slave to that loan, because there's no other way. You have to work really, really hard to pay that loan back. And that's the system been set by the government. But most people who choose to live in these tiny homes, they are actually people who have decided to disrupt this whole system and have decided that they don't want to have loans. They want to have a much more free life so that they can make their own choices. And of course, concern for the environment is the other reason why people have now started. There's a clear movement, right? There's also the whole thing about getting approvals on properties that are not easy to get approvals on. Maybe it could be close to a forest area. Maybe it could be close to a CRZ area, right? So those are the main reasons why this sort of revolution is now in place, and it's here to stay, because building a home is more and more expensive. There are more and more people now who are environmentally conscious, and more people want to have adventurous lives rather than have lives that are very typical. But I wouldn't say yet that everyone's first preference is to have a tiny home. I would say most tiny homes in Europe or even in the US are more like second homes to people, not first homes to people. And they are extensions to homes. Try and build something really small, be it India, be it the US, or be it Europe. It is really a nightmare.
So I'm sure from when we say tiny homes, I mean, there's so many ways that it's been described: micro homes, tiny homes, small homes. In your mind, how would you define in a short sentence what do you mean by a micro or a tiny home? More coming from a size and the elements that it contains.
I would say a micro home is anything lower than about a 500 square feet is called, I would say, a micro home. And the government has slowly started regulating this even in the US and Europe, which is also fair to some extent. But I do know, for instance, in the UK, anything that is 6 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters height is allowed as an outhouse and is allowed as something that you don't necessarily need permissions for. So, and such is the case in many other countries too. But yes, slowly it's going to definitely come under the ambit of law, and which is a good thing, because one needs safety at the end of the day. And there are many operators who are operating this and creating very, very, very cheap homes, things that will not last for a few years and may even be structurally unstable, you know. And eventually, they're all part of the tiny home movement. But the key thing here is that we can't, eventually the government will have to regulate this, and there's no other way. So, but it's also
Okay, and so what kind of materials? I mean, you mentioned about renewability. You mentioned about being environmentally friendly. So I know that you've already done a few projects in India through the startup that you have, Zen Den. So what are the kind of materials that you typically use, and what is the tell us a little bit more about the modularity of the concept.
So the materials that we've been using are basically really lightweight materials. We've been exploring materials steel that you would use in spacecrafts. We've been exploring carbon fiber. We've been exploring, of course, metal in general. We've been so there's a lot of R&D going into this concept. However, right now our homes have mild steel. And we're exploring lightweight panels like fiber cement boards, which are composites with insulated panels. We're looking at PET foam, which are and these are recycled PET foam. So most of these materials that we're talking about are very, very high on sustainability. Okay. Either they are materials created out of products that are recycled, or they are materials that have a very low impact on the energy that they consume, on the carbon emissions. And we're exploring many other materials like hemp. We're exploring different fabrics which can be molded to create different shapes. So these are all right now under R&D. And we're hoping that, in a few years from now, they could see the light of day and they could evolve and we get sort of structures that could be any shape that we can desire. So there are certain limitations that we have right now. I don't necessarily have the most high-tech lab. My lab is pretty much, my office right now. Sure. And we are trying our best to with natural resources that we have, try and develop newer and newer ways by which we can build and get new typologies that people have never seen before. So that's really the plan.
Okay. And these homes, you can really set it up anywhere, right? I mean, that's what I understood. And it can be packed up and moved to a different place quite easily.
Yeah, very much. So initially, when we started conceptualizing this, we obviously said that, okay, this has to be the size of a small container, which can be sort of lifted and put anywhere. But so that's where that was the basic premise. We said, okay, what is the smallest footprint that one can build a home in? And we figured that it would be a good start to wow, that's a bird. Okay, so it would be a good start to have something the size of a container. But we very soon understood the limitations of having something the size of a container, which was going to be picked up by a crane and planted at any site. Because my own office, for instance, even though the roads are pretty large, but the trees over there will not allow for me to even get a container or anything the size of a container or a crane that could actually make this happen. So then we understood that, if we can't put it in our own office, there's going to be a very good chance that you're not going to be able to do this in quite a few other places. So we very quickly revised our strategy, and we said that this cannot be a plug and play like just a full module that comes and gets plonked. Not necessarily that it can't be that way, but we needed to look at other possibilities. So we very quickly revised that to making it a kind of a modular system which came together in the form of panels, which has also been a challenge because, I don't know, people here, our workers don't understand modularity so easily.
So
Because,
true.
they want to do things with their hands and they want it to sort of all be done in real time. They don't understand that something can be prepared and something that's modular that can come together. So we've always had that challenge where even when we're discussing this, and we haven't had some high-tech engineers working with us initially because, we were just working with fabricators that we would otherwise use for other projects. And what we figured was that every time we did a prototype, it was still not the most modular building. It was still, there was about 70-80% of it that was still happening at site, or rather, there were many aspects of it that could have been modular, which we have now fully resolved almost. So for us now, everything will come in as Lego blocks, literally. Uh, my dream would be when two panels can come and click clock into each other and just stay together. We're working on those systems, but like I said, with slightly limited resources, it takes time. We're looking at systems where electrical and plumbing are integrated, right? So that brings down the amount of time that you need to install at site. So if all goes well, in a few months, we're hoping be able to install a whole den in one day. And that's the sort of a goal we've set for ourselves. But I would say that, if we can achieve it in even 7 days to 10 days, that's far less than anything else, or far less than it would still be amazing. So
Absolutely, yeah. So, I know that the projects that you've done are pretty much far and few, so not too many. But I guess when you try to scale this up, today, I don't think you require any government permissions, which you mentioned a little while ago. But the moment you start scaling this up into larger developments, which is what is currently being executed in some parts of the West, that's probably where the government comes into play. And then they would probably be permissions, utilities, zoning. Do you see that as a constraint, or what would you really require the government to do? Because I think even from the state side, I think this is such a great solution to a lot of the issues that we have around housing. So if you had a wish list for the government, what would that be, Anshul? To make this, to scale this up and make it more commercial.
It's a very, very good question because I think, see, as far as the authorities are concerned, all the rules that they have in place are fair, right? If you want to build a building, you have to leave your setbacks. There are laws governing the fire regulations, governing pollution control, and all of that. And if you're talking about scaling up, and if you're saying that, okay, let's look at how Zen Den can translate into a 15 or a 20-story building, I would expect that the same laws will apply, and which is absolutely fair. But we don't have a problem with that at all, because we will comply any which way, irrespective. We will, being an architect, I know that I will have to first do a plan that complies with all the regulations. But the key thing here is that these modules could be very easily plug and play modules that could be integrated into that design. So while the structure of the building may have to be of a certain nature, which may even be a metal structure, but these modules that come into play can be very easily fit into that framework. In fact, we are looking at the possibility of a large hotel chain called Signature Hotels in London, who we are already communicating with as to how we can make this happen with like a good 10, 15 story structure worldwide. So see, the regulations should be more, I mean, I wish the government could look at this as something that's quite serious in terms of bringing the carbon footprint down. And if we're talking of a ground story structure or a ground plus one structure, if they could have simple regulations where they say that, or at least come and see the benefits of something like this, right?
Sure.
I mean, I would say it's sad to say that most of the authorities or rather the politicians that I've approached with this, they laugh it off. In the sense they say, that's not a home. Idu mane illa guru, that's not really a home. But they don't understand that you don't necessarily need brick and mortar to build a home. But the whole mindset that we have in our country is that if you don't use brick and mortar, you cannot call something a home. And funnily enough, the banks themselves have that as a notion. When I approached a certain bank to say that, I've developed a space, I called it a home because it is really a home. Of course, it is small for a home, but I'm saying this is a prototype. You could make a larger footprint of the same thing. But their main thing was that I don't think I can give you a loan on this, or rather I can't give anybody a loan on this because this is dismantleable. And you can, if somebody takes a loan on it, tomorrow, if he dismantles the whole thing and moves it anywhere else, where am I going to hold him responsible of action, right? Having said that, people fail to realize that it's as good as a permanent structure. It's not so easy to dismantle the structure, or somebody can't dismantle it on his own. There are ways of regulating that too. Today, if I buy a car, they install a GPS in my car if I take a loan on it. So they know exactly where the car is parked if I run away.
Correct. I mean, I think there was a controversy recently on HDFC Bank doing something like that. That's
right.
Yeah.
Right. No, it is true because a car that I have has that GPS installed in it.
Installed.
So
okay.
Yeah. So they know exactly where the car is, and I think it's a fair thing to do. So you could do the same. So the thing is, people need to open their minds out. They need to see the benefits of something of this nature. They need to understand that today, if I told you, Santosh, you can have a home for 10,000 rupees a month, right? For paying an EMI of 10,000 rupees a month. And rather than telling you that, okay, pay about 1 lakh of rupees. Just look at just through efficiency, through design, and through just slightly disruptive thinking, we've managed to bring the cost of a home down to 10,000 rupees a month of EMI to be paid, right? Which can further come down. Right now, my costs of production are very high. I mean, I'm going to a vendor and begging them and pleading them that, listen, don't charge me your normal rates because I'm a startup and I'm trying to build a home which shouldn't cost too much. But no one really cares. For them, it's about commerce, They may give it to me once, but they won't give it to me the second time. They'll say, order, or if you're doing 100 homes, then come talk to us, Maybe we'll give you a 10, 20, 30% discount on this or whatever. So right now, my costs are not low. My costs are still fairly high. I'm talking about 5,000-6,000 rupees a square foot with interiors integrated. But the moment I say that, okay, the moment I say 5,000-6,000 rupees a square foot, most people's eyeballs pop out saying that, dude, I can build a mansion, Italian marble with that, So
yeah, but it's a multiplier that works in your favor in this case.
It's they don't realize that it's a very small space.
Small place.
Part of the space is treated, and of course, it's bespoke in a certain sense because we're doing one at a time. And of course, if I did maybe 100 in one go, I could bring down the cost. But we are working on those possibilities because I feel that now I'm very clear that the entire production has to be done in a factory, which is something that we're consciously working towards. The entire panel-based system is going to come from a factory, and it's going to possibly go to any remote place where it can be easily installed. 2 people can install the whole den themselves.
Okay.
I'm hoping that one day it can become as easy as a DIY kit. So you just do it yourself. But again, that's not necessarily going to be very popular in India. In India, we already...
Yeah, we are definitely not the DIY kinds, at least not our generation. Maybe the future generations will take that up, yeah.
But Europe, I can see that as a big plus because labor is so high over there. So, but if I can bring the installation time down to like 1 day or 2 days, then the cost of labor is minimal. So those are the aspects that we're trying to work on. It's kind of early days, but I think we're ready. We haven't done a proper formal launch as such or made any big announcements, but I think it's just organically through word of mouth, it's sort of gone around, and people are very interested and excited about the possibilities with it, and that's what keeps us going to.
Great, Anshul. There are a couple of questions which have come in from audiences. Maybe I'll take that up because we're running out of time now. The first question is from Nimita Reddy, and her question is, what is the future of micro homes in India? I think which you have partly answered. But the second part of the question is, how is this trend being picked up by the big builders in the country? Is there any traction that's really coming in from some of these builders?
Yes, I think there's a great future for micro homes in India. It's going to take a little time though. We always sort of wait for cues from the West. The West have taken to it. But I must say that the young and adventurous developers are looking at this as something that can truly be disruptive. So, like for instance, I had a developer who told me that there were 300 homes for, I think, the police personnel that they were going to soon be doing.
Okay.
And, he was discussing with me as to how quickly 300 homes can be set up. Of course, he wasn't still sure whether the technology we have would be approved by the government because it's not brick and mortar, for instance, right? Okay. But there are developers who are realizing the true value of this. They are looking at it very, very closely, and they are saying that let's start the discussion, which is great to see. And imagine if you could do 300 homes in be done in 6 months. Look at the amount of time one would save. Look at the time of the amount of energy one saves. How quickly the setup cost is saved in terms of people being employed for years together on a site to execute something of this nature.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, and we also have some developers who are looking at micro housing to serve people who are PGs. We're looking at people who, for young families who are looking to do this concept now. We're looking at hospitality sector very keenly looking at this because hotels today are obviously in trouble with COVID, but people don't mind leasing large pieces of land and having a ready-to-use staycation module like the Den. So, right now I'm single-handedly trying to sort of have these conversations, but hopefully, if someone sees that the potential and maybe gives us some funding, things could move faster.
Wonderful. We have another question. This is from Danya Mohan. And the question is, does micro homes go well in tropical conditions like in India?
Yeah. So it's a very good question.
Maybe, Anshul, probably if you have some pictures of the homes that you've made, probably this is the right moment to maybe share some of those pics and very quickly take us through that, some of the modularity and the elements that it contains.
Sure. I'm just going to do that right away. Okay, so this is one of the modules, one of our first prototypes. Let me just get full screen. Okay, so this is what it it looks like from the outside. Now,
so how many square feet is this particular home?
This is 160 square feet home.
Wow.
20 feet by 8 feet. It pretty much has everything that you need in a home. So let me just take you through the insides of it. So what you see over here is a living room. There's a bench that's been folded down, which can come up, and it accommodates about 5 to 6 people.
Okay.
When we first made this, what we realized was that it would be nice to even have cross ventilation. So we have now another window. The bed has moved now to this side. There's a bed that actually flips down. I think we'll show you a better picture of that.
Right.
This is a bed that sort of folds down. So when you're not, when you're ready to sleep, basically one of the benches folds down and the bed comes down. And these are not rocket science concepts, because the idea is that, we want to keep it as simple as possible and kept the hardware fairly simple, because if you're in a remote area and something goes wrong, it should be very easy to fix. Any carpenter should be able to fix this, right? You've got some nice concealed lighting. We're doing, a good, interesting automated system where you can pretty much operate anything with your phone. The key thing here is that the houses, the footprint is so small that the amount of ventilation you need is just about adequate with the kind of windows and fenestration that we have. But what we've done is we've added another window over here so that you have enough cross ventilation.
Sure.
In tropical climates, you have to address the sun, you have to address the rain. Luckily, in most tropical climates, you don't have to address the cold as much, right?
Okay.
We're very well insulated in terms of our panels. We can go and insulate our panels in very cold climates as well. We can go to sub-zero temperatures. We just need to change the spec of our insulation.
Yeah.
We do have the option of air conditioning, which goes against what we're trying to do. But at the same time, the entire den can be easily, if we have a solar 6 kVA panel, photovoltaic cell,
right on the roof,
can probably run on that as well. Not probably, can run on it, right?
Okay.
We're looking at possibilities of generating water from air through and working with companies that are starting to do that now. We're looking at how the entire water can be recycled as well and used for flushing and planting. We're looking at ways by which we can grow vegetables on the walls of the den on the outside. So you have a little vegetable patch of your own.
Sure.
But again, you see, these are okay as gimmicks. Eventually, if you have land, you have enough space to be able to grow your own vegetables outside. And the whole idea of this particular den is, and this size den, is that it's a quick fix. It's a quick fix for something that you can use for a short period of time if you're not used to living in such a small space. And 160 square feet is a really small amount of space, but to be able to accommodate everything in it, we've done fairly well.
All right. And looks wonderful. Actually, I mean, it's a lot of science that really goes into optimization of space, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really about optimization of space, and it's about using every millimeter to your advantage. We also have a full-fledged toilet with an attached bath, all in a space of 4 feet width and 7 feet, 8 feet length.
Okay.
So, and we're looking at other ways now by which we can use the space better. So we've got drop downs from the ceiling that will come, where you can have more storage. So it's just opened up a whole new world of exploration for us.
Correct. Yeah, I saw some wonderful pics of some of these houses in the US where most of the bedrooms have been moved to the loft, and that optimizes space even better. So, you can have a much larger living area below.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at that as well. We're looking at double height spaces where you can have a bedroom on the higher floor and your entire living room is then freed up. You can still have this as a second bed if need be. So, then you have a fairly spacious space. In India, we're not, if you're used to living in a home, then this is a little tight for you. But right now, most people see it as a interesting glamping pod or a nice sort of getaway pod in the wilderness. But the same thing could easily serve a poor man if he can bring down the costs as his permanent home for one or two people, because that's the kind of space that they live in any case.
Absolutely.
In fact, there are times when 5 people live in a space as small as this in most, low-cost housing areas.
Absolutely. Great, Anshul. That's wonderful. It's been a very enlightening conversation, and if not a caring doctor, we at least now have a wonderful architect who's pushing boundaries and looking at things which are more disruptive in nature. It was a pleasure having this discussion with you. I'm sure as you come across newer methods of materials and process to make this whole concept scalable, I think that's where we are really going to see the fruitification of all your efforts. And I wish you all the very best in this endeavor. And once again, it was wonderful having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your encouraging work. And it's very encouraging when we have people appreciate the concept and can see that it's something that could go somewhere, because we're always challenged on a daily basis and often wondering where's this going to take us. But we're more or less confident now that if we continue to put in the efforts that we are, this hopefully can take us places. But thank you so much.
Wonderful. I mean, this is exactly what we want to do with this whole platform of Out of the Blueprint. Rather than it being another chat about architecture, we want to really look at some path-breaking work that is being done by people like you. And I think this has been a great start. The only encouragement I can give you is that the next generation, the millennials and the next generation, I think their concept of living is very different from what we guys have gone through. I think I still remember buying my first second-hand car. A car was such an important part of an asset that you wanted to own. But I have conversations with my son who's now just out of college, and a car doesn't interest him at all. I mean, he says, "Why the hell do we need a car when there's Uber, which is much more convenient?" So they're also looking at things which in a very different manner. And I guess, although you were one of the earlier entrants, my only closing comment would be to keep going at it, because I think the time is soon coming where minimalistic living is going to be appreciated, at least by the new generations, Anshul. Wonderful talking to you once again, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.